Mariah was like, oh my god, pink wit?
I love a good pink wit.
Welcome to Incognita.
Incognito?
Fuck. Incognito. What's up, motherfuckers? We're back. We're driving home right now.
Been a hot minute.
Funny enough, we started another episode. Have no idea.
We definitely didn't finish it.
We did not finish it. We probably won't at this point. It might just become extra
now it's kind of weird.
Because I don't even remember what we were talking about. So I'm letting Mariah drive my car. How do we feel about this?
Fine, but the issue is I'm in the exit-only lane, and I need to be in the other lane, but I also don't want to be in the traffic, so I'm kind of being the douchebag that's, like, kind of cutting people here.
So we're on a trek about 15 hours. We stayed in South Carolina last night. We stayed in Charleston.
That was
fun. And it was super fun. Really sweet little quaint town.
Well,
it's a city. It's a big city, but the place we ended up visiting.
Well,
was
no,
very
I was
quaint.
gonna say I don't know if sweet's the right word, considering it's full of so much dark history.
Yeah. So Mariah, being the little typically the what do you call it? The passenger princess. Was doing all the research on every place that we would go. I would just drive, and she would just, research the next hot thing we should go visit. So tell our zeros, what's like the one interesting fact you learned about Charleston, South Carolina, and the adventure we went on this morning in order to find this interesting fact?
Last night I was looking up like history about it because I feel like the reason the town is popular is because of the history. Like, I don't think it's like much to do. It's like just more seeing. And so, anyway, I was on TikTok because that's where I get all my news source information. And I learned about this tree that was there they called the lynching tree, where I guess they used to hang people, black people, back in the 1800s. And I guess it was an event in 1866, I think, if I remember. Where there was like a massacre of like a bunch of, I don't know if they were slaves or just black people in general, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. And so anyway, terrible tree, and eventually it was uprooted and brought elsewhere, and they replaced the tree. And so everyone was kind of like, why did you replace the tree? But they paved, like, the whole road and, like, kind of were giving the impression that it was for a memorial of some sort. But, first of all, the road was originally called Lynch Lane, I believe, or Street. And they changed it to Ashley Ave. Don't know if Ashley has any significance. But the issue with this new tree is that they didn't even put like a memorial, a plaque, nothing to symbolize that this is a dark, like, part of their history. Like, you wouldn't realize it's such a significant and terrible tree unless you were to, like, Google the history behind it, which I only knew about it because of TikTok. And, so anyway, I said, well, it would be very interesting to see it, because I'm, like, curious, is it, like, what are they doing? Is it, like, any significance with this tree? Like, or are they just keeping it there, even though it has such a dark history?
Right.
And so we were trying to look for it, and we went to Ashley Ave, and we could not find this tree. Even if you Google it, it's like, there's a couple pictures that look like it is the tree, but it's not 100% sure. And so we went like up and down the like
The entire street of Ashley
And I
Ave.
swear to God, it was not anywhere. I was like, okay, so Nolly, like, they really, like, do not, like, acknowledge this tree.
And what was crazy is that when we went, it was in a very residential neighborhood. So we kind of assumed that if the tree did exist, there was no indication what tree it was. So we were just literally driving up and down Ashley Ave. There was just, exactly like you said, there was no plaque or any type of signifier that said this tree resembles all the slaves or the people of color who have been wrongfully,
Megan was being a little delulu cray-cray with it, and she's pointing at every fucking tree to me, and she's like, is that the tree? I'm like, bitch, do I look like I know? I was like,
I was excited.
No,
I really
I don't
wanted
know.
to find this tree. I think
she's pointing in every single person's fucking driveway. Is that the tree? I'm like, no, I don't know. But do I look like I'm
we tried.
fucking Charleston, like, tour guide?
The expert of Charleston.
Like, I'm aware that I'm the passenger princess and I've figured out all of this stuff for us, but there was no way to even look up what the tree fucking looked like. I think I know what it looks like, but I'm not even 100% sure. And that was with, like, a lot of trying to Google this shit. So it's like,
yeah,
they really bury that. They really do.
they buried that shit. They were like, nope. So, quick side fun fact before Mariah goes on her tangent about this tree, because I know she's very passionate. We both are. We discovered that as we're driving up and down the East Coast from Florida back to New Hampshire, where we live, that there are these express lanes that you can actually, this is what we think that they do. It's a separate lane in the middle of the highway that essentially it's either a single lane, or sometimes there's two depending on the size of the highway. And essentially what it does is you pay like an extra, like you go through a bunch of, Easy Pass related type tolls or pay by plate, whatever it may be, and you can bypass like a bunch of traffic. And Mariah and I did not know this, or maybe you did know this. I know that I confidently can say that I did not know this, and we ended up getting stuck on one of the expressways on our way to Florida.
I feel like most people probably know about it, though, considering it's been in every state except for New England.
I know,
like,
the second
this is probably like a no fucking shit.
It's like, yeah, there's a lot of fucking people out here. Of course we have this. It makes fucking sense.
Yeah.
Oh, this is pretty. We're passing Lake Norman. Fun fact. Very pretty road. Anyway, back to your tree story.
Asshole. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, just had to get that fun expressway fact out there.
Now I totally don't even know what I was saying. Oh, the 2020 thing. So basically, I guess one event happened where in the middle of the night, like unexplained, there was a bunch of names put on the tree. Like, I believe people who have probably been hung. Is that it? Or hanged? Hanged?
I think hung.
Wow, I'm dumb. I feel like I need to know the proper term for
essentially, people who were victims.
Yeah,
slaves
for sure.
that were victims of this terrible lynching on this tree.
Definitely did not read too far into it, so I don't know exactly whose names are on there. Probably should have, but I was just so, like, into trying to find it. But anyway, names of, victims in one way or another, for sure. The names of them all over this tree on like little papers hanging. That's what it said. But it said that by the morning time, it had been removed by like local cops, all of the names of those people. And I was like, that's kind of fucked up though, because I think that would have been so like awesome. Like they don't have
what the tree would be at that point.
They don't have any memorial, any nothing, and it's like, can you at least let these people put names that they feel should be on there and like just in some way make it a little right. I mean, I don't know, it's not right, but make it a little better, Jesus. But to take it down literally by the morning time is so disrespectful. And like honestly, it would have probably by the weather gone away on its own anyway. Like, I don't know, why did you have like, why don't you just let it be? Why don't you do something? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes this situation unique, and I had mentioned this to you when we were kind of talking as we were leaving South Carolina, we were like, what the heck? Why can't we find this tree? Is I understand from a legal perspective that this tree clearly has a significance and is being treated as a memorial of some type, in the sense that maybe the cops were taking down the papers that represented all the names of the victims on that tree, as they viewed it more as a place of as a thing of vandalism on the tree.
That's crazy.
But that would only be the case if there was an actual formal plaque and a formal announcement that this tree is a significant historical landmark that we want to then I would understand. They took that down because it wasn't authorized. Like, maybe they would do like a ceremony where they would do that all together. Like, I've seen that in towns and whatnot. But the fact that they just recognize that this tree exists, say that you can go visit it, but then don't allow anyone to celebrate its culture and its history. Not celebrate, that's a horrible terminology. But remember the ancestors and the slaves that were treated so terribly. I think that it's ridiculous.
Well, it's not even a well-known thing. That's the other thing. It's like, it's not. It's like if I went to any fucking tree I wanted to, and I put whatever I wanted on there, it would stay there, right? Like, no one, or at least it would take a long time for anyone to do anything about it. You know how many fucking shoes I find in trees?
Seriously.
And they're not taken out.
But then this one particular tree in South Carolina, they will not let you put anything on it, but yet they also don't want to recognize it as a part
But yet
of
they
American
paved
history.
the fucking street and, like, pretended it was, I don't know, it seems the whole thing's shady to me.
So, the Malaysian Airline. So, for those who don't know about it, which if you don't, you uncultured swine, get educated. A plane in 2014, March 8th, it officially disappeared, right?
And I had mentioned this in the last podcast episode we did, but I don't know if it was in the last one that we did that we're not going to finish. I think it was in the first one we did on this road trip, though. I mentioned that was my favorite, like, theory. My favorite, like, mystery. Yep.
And it's right now it's still considered the most expensive aircraft rescue / finding mission rescue effort across history and the world. The Malaysian government, I believe, spent about $1.5 billion trying to find the plane and the 227, although we might get into 228 passengers on this plane. So we listened to this really fun and very detailed podcast about several conspiracy theories that might have happened with this plane.
The podcast name is Unexplained Mysteries, by the way.
Unexplained Mysteries.
Love
and
that. They did really great.
Great job. So what we say here
is all from them.
From them.
Everything's good with this airline. It's going to
Malaysia.
I think it was Beijing.
Yep, from Malaysia or the Malaysian airport, on track to be in Beijing by like 6:30 a.m. It was a red-eye flight, and it was only projected to be about a 5-hour flight.
Yep.
For these 228 passengers.
Well, 27, but
27,
apparently.
And supposedly there's a mysterious passenger, which we'll get to.
So the plane takes off. Things are going well. And less than an hour into this flight, the air traffic control of Malaysia says goodbye to the flight with the goal of transferring them to the Vietnamese air traffic control, because you have to pass it along as they get further from you, and so it's like a common practice. This happens all the time. But they hit a dead zone
called a black spot.
And the Vietnamese air traffic control didn't pick up on them at all. They were not in their radar. And all of the communication went, like, dead in less than 2 minutes. There was 3, like, main sources of ways to track this plane, all dead at the same time.
Except for one.
I said 3 that went out. All 3 went out. There was 5 total.
Oh, right, you haven't mentioned the 5 yet.
The 4th one, I forget what that one was all about, but the 5th one was a satellite dish that would ping every once in a while. Oh, the 4th one was
the Boeing airline being able to track.
The airline being able to track.
So yeah, there was 5 controller options.
Oh my god, I hate this fucking truck. Sorry.
And Mariah's getting a hint of road rage. So 3 of the 5 went out. One, I guess, like Mariah had said, the plane itself was a Boeing plane. It was a very large jet, and it.
How much did it weigh again? It was like 700.
I think it was
700,000 pounds, right?
Yeah, it was like 700, or I don't know why I keep thinking of 170,000. I don't know. Either way.
No, it was definitely like
way
700 something.
700,000
pounds. I was like, what?
Craziness. So I guess each manufacturer of any plane, this plane happened to be a Boeing, as the podcast said. They have to. The manufacturers can track every plane that they manufacture. Supposedly that one was working, and then the last piece was the satellite, right? And
the one that pings.
And I guess that one doesn't give a lot of information as a whole.
No, it just kind of says that it's active,
that it's on.
Yeah.
And if that's on, that also means that the plane could still be traveling. Potentially.
It means it is traveling.
It is traveling? Okay.
It means it's in the air and it's currently moving. That went for 7 hours.
Insane. So this plane, after going dark, no air traffic controller was able to get in contact with this plane. I guess the Vietnam government, or the Vietnam air traffic control, was trying to reach out to this airline. And for 7 hours, this plane was in the air with no communication. That's
going over the Indian Ocean. So basically, just to sum it up, because let's not get too far into details. If they want full details,
go to that podcast.
For sure, go to that podcast. There was so many interesting things. But basically, the plane was on the right path. They lose the signal from the Malaysian Airlines. They take a slight, left or right? I think it was. Anyway, they go left or right, slightly.
30
and
degrees.
then, one source thinks they're going that way. One of the little trackers, but then it turns out from the other tracker, that's 7 hour one or something. It turns out they ended up taking a hard left or right, whatever one they didn't do. So completely in the opposite direction, 180 degrees actually. That's what they said. And just kept going straight from there. Over the Indian Ocean, I guess. So
from the flight patterns, it looked like they took some turn. We can't remember if it was left or right, but then they turned back, almost like they were going back to Malaysia, was the crazy part. But instead they overpassed Malaysia and went towards the Indian Ocean.
Which is super dangerous and sketch, I guess.
So, and
it's a death sentence, they said. Especially because they're going to run out of fuel and whatever, and I know that's a lot of what people are saying for conspiracies.
Yeah. So, the podcast itself went into a lot of deep dive into the past of the pilots, because I think those were the first 2, red flags. Did the pilots do something in order to jeopardize this plane and the journey that it was taking? And
one of the pilots, the younger one, it was his last day of training there.
Yeah.
And I just bring him up because I guess he was he checks out, he's okay, I guess. But he, one of the times he brought a bunch of women onto this, I guess it's allegedly, he brought some woman onto, it's the cockpit to kind of show off a bit. And honestly, get it.
Live for that. We live for that energy.
We love it. Good for him. He just wanted some puss, bro.
He did. He wanted some good puss.
That's respectful.
No,
I mean, come on. We're all gonna die for sure. But,
yes.
But yeah, no, I thought that was iconic.
Despite what we're saying, we'll just say it now, just so it's very clear. We do sympathize, empathize, and my heart, and I know Mariah the same. We go out to those families. What happened was tremendously terrible. I could never imagine not finding out what happened to my loved ones.
I mean, that's just sick. Like, it's
That's
just
just
like,
so
I just can't
horrible.
wrap my head around it. It's, like, crazy.
And that's what makes this so interesting. So, yeah, so Mariah said there was 2 pilots. The young one, he checked out. He just was looking for some clout. Good. He was good to go.
Megalodon doesn't like the other pilot.
The other pilot, now this is where my conspiracy
She's like, he's
comes
shady. Which, yeah, I guess he's a little shady, but...
So this man, 56 years old, he was happily married, had a great reputation within the Malaysian community that he lived in, and he always wanted to be a pilot. So he got what he wished for. He became a very well-seasoned pilot, and he actually had a flight simulator in his house.
I don't know if that's that crazy.
I don't
it's a little
know.
crazy to me, but, like, I feel like airline pilots and people who love
They're-
flying, they
yeah.
do that all the time. They have flight simulators.
Yeah, I guess. And, like, here's where this is where my conspiracy theory comes in. And what I think could have happened is, prior to the flight, this pilot, this 56-year-old pilot with the flight simulator, he ended up having just a complete downfall in life. He ended up just, like, his bubbly, happy, outgoing personality quickly turned to this very, like, quiet and I forget other words as it was described on the podcast.
Reserved.
He became very reserved, very cold-shouldered towards everybody.
Within the span of a couple weeks.
Within a span of a couple weeks, to the point that his wife and 3 children physically moved out of the house to get away from this man.
A couple days before the flight, I think.
Before the
it was
flight.
his last, like, his first flight since they had left.
So this man had already, he had gone through the ringer before even getting on this plane. He went through something terrible. Do we think that may have altered his judgment? That is not something we'll ever know, but I think it's a very high possibility.
It would be fucked up, though, if you're like, oh, yeah, he's behind it, and then it turns out he's a poor victim.
I know. I'm not saying...
You would think he's shady.
The way things are working... Well, apparently this other podcast also thinks the U.S. is shady, but we'll get into
I think
that.
the U.S. is shady. I believe that one.
So, where I think my conspiracy comes in and what I think. So, before the flight, this man went into his own homemade flight simulator, and he actually ran a flight over the Indian Ocean.
Which they said it would be more weird if he didn't, because most of the routes go over the Indian Ocean.
True.
They said that.
Most routes do. True.
They said it would be more shady if he didn't.
However, the
And it was
data...
a similar route. It wasn't the same route.
It wasn't the same route, but it was a similar route. But the data had been manually deleted. So it is conspiracized that this man did a similar flight over the Indian Ocean and then deleted the footage. Why would he need to delete that footage? And why was he practicing a simulation over the Indian Ocean to begin with if he
It's a
knew?
common route.
However, wouldn't you, if you were about to take a flight or if you were about to do something in the next couple of days, wouldn't you rather practice that, a flight to Beijing?
I am an avid flyer. I love flying. I wanted to be a stewardess before I did a lot of research into it. You could work for airlines. You don't know what you're going to be getting. You don't know. So, like, he wouldn't even know that in a couple days he would be doing that probably. I don't know for sure if it works the same in Malaysia, but like here, if I was a stewardess, you're basically on call. And they're like, okay, you're going here. Like, you don't know until you get assigned it.
Okay. Well,
So I feel very passionate about that I think that it's not as shady as it looks. I think the most shady thing is the deleting the footage.
so this is what I think might have happened. So that was the first investigation.
Jesus Christ, this guy's on my fucking ass.
Mariah's road rage queen. Love it.
Well, people piss me off. Get the fuck off my ass, bro.
So what I think may have happened, and like again, total conspiracy, but after listening to this podcast, they investigate the 2 pilots, which we just went over. The next thing that they did was they looked at possible things that could have happened. So there was this idea that a government organization cyberly created a hijack without even being on the plane. Like, there may have been 1 or 2 hijackers, or in the case that I think, maybe this pilot was one of the hijackers, turned checked off all the boxes and flew the plane to this U.S. airbase what was it called? There's this U.S. airbase that is literally in the Indian Ocean.
I think you contradicted yourself. You said...
I think the pilot was in on it. He had a shitty...
No, but you just contradicted yourself. You said that the cyber technology theory was that a government agency would hack into the plane and no one on the plane was responsible. That's what it means.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
So you're saying that.
So I guess, let me backtrack. I totally, you're right, I misspoke. So my idea was that maybe the hijack did happen with this outside government organization. Some people are claiming that America hijacked the plane. And alongside with using this cyber plane hacking technology, maybe the pilot, because he became very reserved up to the flight, maybe he got into some shit and was working with the government essentially like to hijack this plane and take whatever goods, weapons, batteries. There were mentioned about 5,000 pounds worth of batteries in the cargo bay, and maybe that's what happened.
That's your own conspiracy, right? Because they didn't say that.
They didn't mention that.
I was like,
just
wait,
putting
that was
three
not
and
the
three
episode.
together. So that's what I think has happened.
You think he worked with the United States government?
If not the United States government, just any entity that's large enough to capture an entire plane and make it disappear.
How would the United States government communicate with him prior and no one would figure that out? Like, what?
I don't know. Maybe that's another thing that...
And why would he want to... Okay, that's crazy.
Outlandish theory. Love it. Anyway.
Terrible theory.
Okay, says the one who believes that it was aliens.
I mentioned it because I could so see that.
I do believe in aliens, so I do think that could be a plausible story too.
I think that the United States government is more of a realistic thing where they would just hijack the plane in general. Or actually, I really think the one where they might have shot it down and then been like, oh fuck, and then covered it up. That makes the most sense, honestly.
Was that mentioned? That part of the... Okay,
yes,
that was part of it.
That was about the time, though, that you started texting and were paying attention.
That is... Well, I had like 6 messages, and I was like, let's answer them now.
It's so popular.
I guess so.
It's like, I can't be bothered to listen to this theory. I have my own.
I have
and
my
it's
own.
Confirmed.
So, back to the podcast. So, outside of my very outlandish theory, one of the main theories was exactly as Mariah said, is that it could have been completely cyber hijacked and brought by the U.S. This is one of the theories. In this specific example, the U.S. cyber hijacked this plane. No one on board was involved, and manually was able to fly it to this airbase, this American airbase, that no one who is not an American service member has entered. There's been no tourists, there's been no journalists, there's been no one else ever on this island. And supposedly there's some eyewitnesses from neighboring islands that even said, we saw a giant jumbo jet, no idea what it was, just a giant jet flying onto this base.
And honestly, maybe that one is a little crazy. Like, why would the U.S. just hijack this random-ass plane? But I think that the one that makes even the most sense that I had mentioned briefly after that one is that the plane was going over. It did have those eyewitnesses where it could have been them. And because it's so close to that, they're flying over. They get these eyewitness testimonies. It's so close. The island that saw the plane, allegedly, it's close enough to that island that Megan and I were mentioning, that the U.S. base with no people allowed on the island. What was it called?
It's a person name. It's not just like, you know, like something you would name a state. Like, it's named after like a person for sure. I can tell you that.
Yeah, and
it's in the Indian Ocean. So if you look it up, I'm sure you'll be able to.
So anyway, God, you have such a gay horn. I love it.
Henrietta, she's doing her best.
God, I hate him. I can't wait to work past him.
I am terrified. I hate road rage. I get it, but I'm also not someone to ever engage. So whenever he gets road rage and he'll honk, he always like will like stare at people and flip them off, and I'm like, please don't. I don't want to be involved. I'm
I don't
scared.
want people to like.
Well, tell me I'm crazy for thinking this, and I know we live in New England, so it's not maybe as likely. And I'm not saying that this doesn't happen in New England. I just haven't seen it, and I've lived there my entire life. Don't ever heard stories.
Mm-hmm.
But people get fucking crazy with road rage.
No, they
and
do.
I'm
They will
worried.
shoot you down, bro.
Yeah, I'm worried that if I like ever initiate with somebody, that they're just gonna fucking pull a gun.
The most I'll do is like honk. Maybe. I mean, I have definitely flipped people off for sure, but like I don't get too crazy with it. Like I don't scream like "fuck you" in front of them.
I was gonna say this entire time you've been screaming.
No, like, but like not letting them
waited.
see it.
Yeah, you waited for him to pass.
I waited for when he cut me off, and like he could have been dangerous. Like if I didn't notice him, we could have gotten an accident. But I slowed down. That's when I honked because I was like, "You're a fucking idiot." He also didn't use his blinker, so
fucking hate pricks who don't use their
anyway,
blinker.
his license plate number is. Once we get closer, I'm fucking saying his license plate number. So if anyone wants to fucking call the cops on him, be my fucking guest.
Oh my god, please, somebody. That would be so funny.
Anyway,
so back
let
to
me
this actual
talk about
story.
this stupid fucking.
Get your
Yeah.
conspiracy out.
Hold on, I need to get out of this traffic because I'm gonna go crazy. I can't even say this until I get out of this stupid fucking traffic.
So while you're driving and getting out of this traffic, I just remembered something that will go also with this conspiracy, and I think this might even be what you might be thinking about saying. But what's interesting is that with this plane's disappearance, there was no residual, like anything. There was nothing found for a while until 3 pieces were found washed up on these random islands across the Indian Ocean. And what makes this interesting, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is prior to this Malaysian flight MH370 going on this detrimental trip that ended up being a tragedy, the plane itself got into another minor accident on an airstrip maybe like 2 or 3 years prior. And what had happened is that it collided with another plane. I think it was called Eastern China or something, an Eastern Chinese airline. And the 6 feet of the right wing of this Malaysian airline plane was actually in the other plane. It completely was cut off from the Malaysian plane, jutting out of this plane during this accident. And when this residue washed up, these plane parts washed up on shore off the Indian Ocean, the pieces didn't necessarily resemble what could have been the current plane parts. And the reason I say that is because I guess the way their barnacle growth was growing on these plane parts, because at this point we could assume that these plane parts had been floating in the Indian Ocean for well over 1.5 years by the time that they washed up. So it makes it weird that they didn't look exactly the way they should have looked when they were found. So there was the theory going along with the U.S. hijacking the plane that they fabricated the old plane parts, that original 6-foot wing that was embedded in the side of that Eastern airline that it initially ran over, that they kept those parts, even if it wasn't the U.S., whatever government entity that could have potentially hijacked this plane, used those old parts to fabricate this whole story. And additionally, what made it even crazier, and I'm so sorry if this is what you were going to say. Was this what you were going to say, or was it something so different?
I was trying to get to the part about the gunshots and stuff.
Oh, good. Then I'm going to pass it to you, because that was what I was going to go to on next.
Okay, I'm glad you didn't, because I would have actually been so upset, because I'm trying to get out of this stupid thing, and I've been trying to say that one piece multiple times, and I can't because I keep getting distracted.
So, leading on to what I just said about the plane parts being fabricated, we found out something even more interesting. Take it away, Mariah.
Okay, again, 3rd time's the fucking charm, I guess. Basically, these eyewitnesses see this plane. I feel like I'm just repeating what I'm saying. In the United States government island that's right next to it is there. And so anyway, they were saying that the plane was allegedly flying so low that if it were to have landed on the island, it would have been like a dangerous crash because it was too low, too close. And so, anyway, they were saying that perhaps the plane had been shot down.
Oh, okay.
And then because the U.S. government was probably like thinking it was an invader, because you know how they are, like Area 51 and stuff, and they're like, so paranoid, and they don't want anyone trespassing anything. So they shot it down, realized that what it was, and like it's just a bunch of innocent people on this plane, and went, oh fuck, and kind of covered up everything.
Right.
And whether there's any survivors being like imprisoned, who knows? Or like if the whole plane's just chilling in there, who knows? But what made it even more like reliable, aside from the eyewitness testimonies on that neighboring island, was that there was another guy not far on a different island nearby that was searching Google Maps, and that's a well-known thing. And he was looking pixel by pixel, and he found, like a year into searching on Google Maps, he found what looked like, I believe he said the whole plane. It looked like the whole plane, but like, well, what would be left of it, with what looked like gunshots, which I don't know if you'd be able to see that in a Google Maps image, but I guess that's what it looked like. Maybe it was a big, like, bullet thing, whatever. So he took it to, I think it was Australia. I think it was the Australian government, someone, and I don't know, like, not much had went into it. It's been very hush-hush for a while now.
So, wait, so maybe this was the part I wasn't paying attention to. So you're saying that obviously he's not like a renowned, like, like government person, but he was a guy who was interested in investigating plane crashes, and he started to investigate this, and he found on Google Maps a picture of what he thought was the whole plane with bullet holes in it.
Yeah, that was crazy. Well, first of all, he's not a guy that searches crashes. He's a guy that was specifically interested in this case.
Oh, okay.
And just like in his free time or whatever, just like he was like glued to find. He wanted to solve this. So many people want to solve.
Oh my God! Here we are talking about it. We want to solve it.
And like, so he was looking up like pixel by pixel on Google Maps, and eventually found this. Yeah.
Got it.
And it collaborates with them flying in it collaborates everything. It really does.
Well, here's my only thing. Well, there's one more piece. So it's so funny that you brought up the bullet thing, because I was actually going to mention another shooting that happened. So back to what I was saying about the 3 pieces that were recovered, besides the one that he found. So way before this guy even found this bullet hole picture within the pixels of Google Maps, the 3 pieces that I mentioned that were going to be recovered on these islands, or whatever they were called. I think they named the place that it washed up. I forget where it was, the 3 pieces. A Malaysian official went to go pick up those 3 pieces to bring them back to Malaysia. He ended up getting shot. Like, his car just completely got blown up with bullets from an unknown assailant, and he was killed before he was able to recover those pieces and bring them back to the Malaysian government.
That's crazy.
So that's another piece. My only thing with your conspiracy that they had mentioned is, and maybe you have the answer to this, so answer me this if you have it. What would be the reason for them to take such a drastic turn? Why did they immediately go left or right 30 degrees, but then do a complete 180 turn back towards Malaysia? The plane originally was supposed to go from Malaysia to Beijing. So why would they be, like, I guess, why did they turn around? If they were shot down by the U.S., that's one thing.
Right.
But what on that plane made them turn around to the point where they, and to go towards the Indian Ocean of all places?
That I don't know.
So that's where the hole in that conspiracy comes in. And I think obviously a lot of these conspiracies,
they all have
holes. It just makes you think that
Which is why it's such a mystery, is that they all have, like...
So, and the podcast really ended by saying the most plausible idea and story that probably would make the most sense to the public is that somebody, a passenger on this plane, hijacked it. The hijack went
I
wrong.
think they said the most likely one was the one I just said.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well then
That's
maybe...
why I also believe that one. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Probably is that one.
Oh, okay. Then maybe this wasn't the most plausible one. This was one that they mentioned towards the end.
They did mention it, yeah.
But they said that a very likely plausible one alongside the one Mariah just mentioned was that a passenger attempted to hijack this plane and failed, and that is why it ended up crashing in the Indian Ocean. And if that is the case, that would explain why we can no longer find the plane, because I guess the Indian Ocean is like a vast beast of scariness.
This world is a vast beast of scariness.
So, what are your thoughts, everybody? Like, look into it, figure it out. I mean, honestly, I think if we get more people invested in this story, there is a chance to get more traction, to get people to start looking again. In that case, we're gonna end now, and maybe we're gonna hop off early, and we'll be back. But thanks for listening to whatever the fuck this was. Do your research on the Malaysian Airline, and let us know what you find. Thanks.